A very good morning to you once again and welcome to the newspaper review. And we've taken a look at some of the stories making the rounds on front page of the Punch newspaper. But at the moment, we are being joined by a legal practitioner, Barrister Fred Nzaka. Good morning and welcome to the newspaper review.
Good morning, Mr. Krumala. Thanks for being with you.
Yes, it's good to have you this morning. Barrister Fred, when the issues about politics and execution of projects or fulfilling political manifestos in Nigerian politics is being considered, political pundits always attribute the lack of same to political will. Now, I notice that it's a political will. You're a lawyer. It's something you've heard and a word you had to deal with in the course of your practice. Now, let's look at it. Political will. What's the concept to that word, political will, and why is it so critical in the democratic process in Nigeria?
Very good. Once again, good morning to all our dear viewers all over the world. Political will can very easily be described as that ability, that capacity by government to do that which is right or that which is perceived or conceived to be right, to be correct, to be proper, and that which is expected to bring the proper and the correct response. Political will can also be described as the ability of government to walk the talk. Policies and programs do not carry themselves out. As good as they may be, they need to be implemented. Political will is that ability to implement policies and programs that are perceived to be in the best interest of the people towards the overall development of the nation or the region or the state or whatever entity that has made such policy or program. That is political will.
Okay.
It is called political because it is a very major phenomenon under the concept of democracy, which is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. When policies and programs are meant for the overall interest of the people, it should be implemented by the people under democracy for the best interest of the people. So, the political will is that capacity, that ability to implement such policies and programs under the democratic setting by the people for the overall interest of the people.
Okay.
So, when such will is taken, that means no matter how good the policy or program is, it don't get implemented.
Okay, so Barrister Fred, now, from the definition that you've given to political will, is this present or lacking in the Nigerian political space with regards to, implementing and executing policies?
To a very large extent, Nigeria as a country lacks the political will to implement majority of the policies and programs that are meant to bring the much needed growth and development to the country. And that is why the country has been rated a third world country despite all the humongous quantum and amount of human and material resources and the natural resources that the country has been blessed with.
Okay, Barrister Fred, permit me to interrupt you, please. Barrister Fred, let me interrupt you a bit.
Yes.
Now, can we attribute political will to a characteristic that should be possessed by a band of political actors or something that should be possessed by an individual political actor who is a leader or vying for a political elective position in the country. Because if we're to look at it, associate political will to a band or a group of political actors, don't you think we'll get it wrong? Let's attribute it to one person. Since one person will become a president, one person will become a governor, one person will be representing a senatorial constituency or a constituent in the House of Representatives or the House of Assembly. And do they have a vision? And if they get into office, do they have this political will to bring or materialize the vision that they have incubated in their mind?
The challenge we have in Nigeria is not challenge of visioning. We've had good and robust visions, but we already had challenge of that same political will that we are talking about, which is that ability to implement those visions.
Yes.
And that is why Nigeria is where the country is today. And when you look at the issue or you ask the question about who should have that will, the will should be more deposited in the political class, those who have the opportunity to lead. And at any level that a Nigerian has that opportunity to lead, if that Nigerian does not have that political will to implement the good policies and programs that will help and enhance the development of the sector where he is a leader, then it becomes a problem. If a president does not have the will, for example, to implement all the good programs that will take Nigeria out of the wood, then there's a problem. Ditto for the governor and for the chairman of local government and for even the captains of industry. Let's say, for example, the issue of restructuring that we have been talking about.
Okay.
What has held down restructuring from being implemented is that lack of political will.
Okay, Barrister Fred.
On the part of those who have the capacity and the opportunity
to
get it implemented.
Okay, Barrister Fred, let's wrap political will around insecurity and the challenge of insecurity that Nigeria has been bedeviled for a while. Now, when we look at when we listen to critics of this administration, when we listen to political pundits and scholars about insecurity and why we are still battling insecurity currently at the moment, when Nigerian soldiers in time past in Sierra Leone and other African countries have championed peacekeeping operations and have succeeded and achieved excellent performance in those climes. But in Nigeria, we're still confronted with Boko Haram for quite a while now. And some of these people have attributed the blame and criticism to political will of the leadership or of the presidency. Now, how can you define that? Are they right?
Those who say it so are absolutely correct. The president is the commander of the armed forces on whose table the buck stops. And the president, the commander-in-chief, has his field commanding officers. And when the president lacks the political will to tackle the issue of insecurity, and that is why even the field commanding officers will be unable to carry through whatever programs and plans of attack against the felons who cause insecurity in the land. And that is why many people have accused Mr. President of being sectional and sentimental in his approach to issues of insecurity, and that he lacks political will to pull through all the factors and all the actions that will ensure that Nigeria is safe and secure. A situation where some Boko Haram elements were arrested and the government fails to try them. Instead, the government is putting them in the name of rehabilitation, only for them to go back to their dangerous acts and dangerous ways of annihilation. That tells you that government lacks that will. And it is because the commander-in-chief, who is the president himself, lacks the will to pull through all the aims and objectives of government in terms of securing Nigeria.
Okay.
So the issue of political will can very, very easily be seen on the side of security. Recall that when General Hejika was the chief of army staff, he promoted the Boko Haram elements so badly that they cried and cried and cried, and then General Muhammad Buhari, who was in opposition, started saying that it was an attack in the north.
No.
Now,
I think there were members of the. I think it wasn't Buhari that said that. I think it was some of the members in the Senate then that said it was an attack on the children of the north, not Buhari.
General Muhammad Buhari then said so, and then they said that was why when the northern elders they would take President Jonathan to international court or for war. For crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, it was the will that the government then wanted to exercise and to make sure that they sent Boko Haram back.
Okay, Barrister Fred.
When very moment the table turned, and then we now started seeing this same problem of lack of political will, and that's why we are where we are today.
Okay, now before we leave before we leave the discourse of security still within the purview of political will, let's look at when political will is envisaged or looked at, assessed from a leadership perspective. We tend to look at the capacity that of the leadership, the resources that is available to the leadership in carrying out the political will, and we also tend to look at opposing forces who there might be political actors too who are opposing the action or the political will. Do you think all these are some of the factors that must have prevented the current administration from battling or tackling the case of insecurity the way Nigerians expected?
I do not think so, because if you take, for example, why would the government arrest an insurgent, a terrorist, and instead of taking him through trial for him to have his day in court and be meted out with adequate justice, the fellow is released and taken to rehabilitation, only for the fellow to come back to his evil and old ways? I do not think that. I believe that the fish rotten from the earth. And in Nigeria, where we practice a kind of pseudo-federal system, which is more of a unitary system than a true federal system, they had the direction of actions. And that is why in every state, the opinion of the governor holds sway. The direction of actions of the governor is what is respected. And so is the same at the federal level. The opinion and direction of the president what carries the day. So if Mr. President like that political way we are talking about, to implement secure policies and programs and ensure that the country is secured.
Okay. Fred Nzako, legal practitioner reaching us from the southeastern part of the country. It has been an interesting time having a conversation with you this morning.
Many thanks.
And thanks for joining us.